Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle, and today I want to talk about jealousy in homeschooling or while homeschooling. So this is something I want to talk about because I think jealousy is a normal emotion to have. I think a lot of us have it, and especially in the homeschooling community, I think it's very easily for this emotion or feeling to come up. Especially with the availability of social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, we're often seeing these glimpses into people's lives. And of course, they're, usually picture perfect glimpses or the best of this person's life. So it's very easy to compare ourselves, to compare our lives, and to feel discontent with our own lives or our own homeschooling or whatever we're doing. Social media has some benefits, but it also has some negative drawbacks. So I want to talk about the things I do when I experience jealousy in regards to homeschooling and how I get through it and how I manage those feelings. So what do I consider jealousy? First of all, jealousy I think is just being envious of other people, whether that be resources, curriculum, time, space. There are so many different things that, again, you're seeing those little pictures into people's life and you think, man, I wish I had that, or I could do that, etc. That to me is sometimes what I feel. Sometimes what I feel when I see homeschooling portrayed, especially on social media. So the first thing I do is I limit my exposure to those things. So what I mean by that is social media, again, can be wonderful, but it can also make us feel discontent with our lives, especially when we're seeing perfection, and not real life. And that's one of the things that really honestly irritates me about a lot of social media and content creators and things is the inability to really just portray yourself and be real with people, because I think that's what people ultimately want. I'm sure there's some that want the beautiful aesthetic and fake life, but I think most of us on here just want to talk about real things, be real people, because that is the most benefit and helpful we can be. So when I notice that I am starting to get negative feelings about myself by watching certain content, I stop watching content. And again, this is nothing necessarily against the content creators. I think there are some people that, just put stuff out there and it just negatively sits with me. And that's my personal thing. And I have the ability to stop watching a video. I'm not one to leave nasty comments or anything like that. If I don't, there are times when I will disagree with people, and that's completely fine, but I'm never going to maliciously attack another person because they make me feel bad about myself. Just walk away. That's kind of my theory with it. So there are times I've unsubscribed from channels. There are times where I've taken a break from channels just because, like, for example, when they show a lot of curriculum reviews, like bam, 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 one after the other, or the back to school, homeschool videos are great, but I have to, really make sure I don't binge watch them, or I come out of it feeling like, well, I want to do this and I don't have that, and it makes me feel discontent. So being in touch with myself and my emotional state and realizing that, curriculum hauls are great, but sometimes they make me feel like I don't have enough and I'm not doing enough. So I switch them out with things like library hauls. I love library hauls. I love watching those videos because I think that is a great way to share resources, but it's also a great way to utilize your local library. And I don't feel like I'm missing out. I can get library books. I can't necessarily get curriculum at my library, but I can get different books at my library. So that's an example of just a switch I'll make. And if, like I said, it's not sitting right with me, I'll just stop watching it. And it's nothing to say negatively about those creators. It's just sometimes you need to realize binge watching certain channels, or if people are consistently just promoting products, I can't watch that. I am someone that is very influenced by what I see, and I think most of us, I have a degree in marketing, if you see something over and over again, it has an impact on you. Even if you don't realize it subconsciously, you start thinking it. And I think that's where that seed of jealousy really starts to bloom, is that you're constantly seeing things. So that's one of the reasons I actually stopped using Instagram, because I felt like it was giving me that feeling a lot of discontentment with my own homeschooling. It didn't have that beautiful, naturally look to it. And I get to the point where I stopped posting because I was wasting my time trying to portray that. And I don't want to portray that. It's not who I am. I don't want to use my small amount of time I have to do those things, and that's completely fine. Each their own. But realizing that a lot of what you're seeing on social media is very curated. A lot of it's honestly fake, and it's just that picture perfect window that stop comparing yourself to others, because that's not the whole story. And when it comes to jealousy within the homeschoolers I know, I don't really feel that towards any of the homeschoolers I know, because again, I see them as more three-dimensional. I know their lives, I know them more personally, so I know the struggles that they have. I know that although we are different families, that we have different things we're dealing with. You don't always get that when you see social media accounts, so it can be difficult to see people as people. So social media is a big thing, so I just try to limit and really pay attention to how I'm feeling, and when I need to step away, I step away from watching certain channels or certain creators. Next thing I do is I figure out my triggers and deal with the emotions about that. So what I mean by that is there are certain videos that I will know would be triggering for me. So for example, a lot of curriculum videos back to back. I know that's a trigger for me, because looking at the resources, that starts in my mind thinking, well, I'm not doing enough, or I don't have enough. And a lot of them, so recently I was watching a video talking about different homeschooling resources and co-ops and charter schools and enrichment schools and things like that. And it makes me feel bad because I have such limited resources where I am. So I hear people talking about, getting $3,000 to spend towards each child through charter school. That's amazing for you, but I don't have that at all. And it's really hard, because what I could do with $3,000 per my 3 kids would be amazing. I budget right now $1,000 for all 3 of my kids, because that's what's within our own budget. So that's really hard to hear people talk about and not feel that ping of jealousy or envy that, man, I wish that had that. As far as homeschooling resources, I don't have a lot of those out there. I've talked about this, that another mother and I created a co-op just because there was nothing really available that fit our needs. And is there work to it? Yes, but there's also great things about that co-op and the relationships my kids have built, the relationships I've been able to build, and the fact that we are filling that need for members of our community is really important. So yes, do I wish I had an enrichment class where I can drop my kids off for a day? That would be awesome. That I would pay for that. That would be awesome, but that's just not a reality for me. I think it's not a reality for a lot of people. I started looking at resources in different states, and I think that is possible for some people depending on the state you live in, but for a lot of us, I don't think it's really an option out there, and that's okay. That's okay. But when I really started thinking about, okay, well, why am I getting these feelings? So I wish I had a drop-off option for my kids where they could take, all the classes I don't want to do, the STEAM or the fun, art, messy, and all that stuff, all the things I don't want to do. That would be awesome. But really, what I would love is them to get that enrichment class experience, but also for myself. And again, this is dealing with the emotions aspect. It'd be awesome to have 5 hours where I didn't have to instruct my children, that little amount of instruction could be taken off my shoulders, because I do take education very seriously, and I know the value of a good education. So I take it seriously, and I make sure I prepare myself best as I can. So to have that taken off would be awesome. But also some of that jealousy is that, God, I wish I had 5 hours to myself, 6 hours to myself. I don't have family that lives nearby. My husband's a pastor, if you didn't know, so he works a lot, and he usually comes home late. So a lot of it's put on my shoulders, not just homeschooling, but life in general. So God, it would be really nice. And that was kind of getting to the root of those emotions, that it's not just the enrichment experience I'd like for my children, but it'd be nice to have some alone time to myself. Like what I could do with 5 hours would be amazing. I'm dealing with the emotions of, not having enough resources in the area I live in or enough support, is dealing with more the inadequacy I feel within myself. Can I really take on my children's education? Do they have enough opportunity? Especially when you see all these kids being able to take these classes and things like that. There's this constant, am I enough? Am I doing enough? And I think that's completely normal in homeschooling, in life in general, and parenting, let's be real. but it can be kind of magnified in the homeschooling realm because you have so much comparison or the opportunity for comparison. So really dealing with those emotions lying underneath the jealousy, because they usually are triggering to something else. So the lack of resources is, well, will they get a quality education if we don't have these things? Things like that. Dealing with the emotions lying underneath the jealousy, I think, is important. And recognizing your triggers, and like I said, make appropriate actions when you notice those triggers, being in tune with yourself. The next one is, I think a pretty obvious one, is focus on what you do have. So one of my, I would say, big jealousies is budget. So I do have a homeschooling budget. I'll link up above. That kind of goes over how we spend, but we have a limited budget. I'm completely honest with that. We are a family of 5, single income. That is by choice. I choose to stay home with my kids, so that does limit the, funds we do have available. My youngest daughter has celiac disease, so that does impact our budget, our grocery bill, medical expenses, things like that. So there are certain things that I have to work within, and that can be hard, especially when you see people talking about curriculum just to see what it looks like, or to buy curriculum just to see what the inside looks like, or you see people constantly going from curriculum to curriculum, or a lot of curriculum product reviews. Those can be difficult to constantly be seeing people have all of these options. Now, does homeschooling have to be expensive? No, but I do think you will have to spend money on it. I don't think you can do it cheaply, and that's just my opinion, especially when your kids get into the older grades. I think, elementary school, it's pretty easy, but when you get into, high school, that requires lab sciences for college credit and things like that, you're getting into expenses. So budget is a thing that comes up, and something I don't think that's talked about enough, the sacrifice of the financial part of homeschooling. And when you're constantly seeing people through different budgets, I think we need more representation of all the different types of budgets that exist in the homeschooling community. But again, looking at the positive and kind of redirecting my focus, and not what I don't have, but looking at what I do have. So yes, I do have a limited budget, but there are some positives in that. So within that, it means I have only a certain amount of money to spend, which really makes me set up boundaries, which I'm a person that works very well within boundaries. So I know I have this, and it will make me prioritize the curriculum I can purchase. So does that mean I can buy all the curriculum? No, God, there's really, again, jealousy. There are some curriculums I would love to try. I've always had my eye on Oak Meadow, but I just can't bring myself to spend that amount of money on one subject. I just can't at this point. Maybe down the road it can happen, I don't know. But right now I can't justify the cost of it. And that bothers me because I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I would love to try it. Again, I'm not going to do any type of sponsored work just to try it. That's just not me. But that's something I'm jealous of, that seeing these people talk about Oak Meadow and all the options and different things like that, but I can't justify the price. But living within my means, living within my budget is helping me prioritize the things I can. So I don't make a lot of curriculum changes throughout the year. I really have to research the things I use and make educated choices in the things I use, because I don't have all this money to throw around. But there are some positives to that. So I'm not making curriculum changes because what I end up choosing most of the time works. Very rarely do I make any type drop a curriculum or make different choices, because I've done the research. I know my kids, I know, and I'm also realistic of what I'm capable of and what they're capable of. I'm not living in the fantasy world. I let go of that fantasy homeschooler a long time ago. So I'm realistic in what I purchase. So my money is going farther. I'm not buying thing after thing or the new shiny thing that's out. I'm not stuck in the keeping up with the Joneses, but keeping up with the Joneses in homeschooling. I see a lot of people that make multiple curriculum changes throughout the year. And I think there are times, yes, that justify changing your curriculum, but a lot of times I think that's where the gaps are coming. And it's so easy, like I said, to have that doubt or questioning yourself to make that curriculum choice. I don't have that option. When I have a budget, and when that money is depleted, there's no other options to choose from. But I do prioritize things like, for example, the most expensive curriculum we use is IEW, and that is a lot, in my opinion, a lot to spend on a curriculum. but I do know I can pass it down because we get the forever streaming to multiple children, so it'll pass down so that I can, justify the cost of it, but it also works well. But knowing that that's one of probably my highest priced curriculum, I know that comes out first, and then I have to work out the other things. So having those boundaries are beneficial, and it does help you prioritize and make difficult decisions instead of flopping all over the place and just buying the next thing. So focus on the things you do have, and remember, what you're seeing is just a glimpse into people's lives. The next one I do is I talk about my feelings. So usually this is to other homeschool moms, friends, or my spouse. I'll be like, hey, I was watching this video where I was looking at this curriculum and I thought it was great, but I can't afford it. Or this person was talking about all these wonderful resources they have and we have nothing. Just vocalizing those feelings and talking to another person, I think, is really helpful. And they don't have to be a homeschooler. Like I said, I talk to my friends about this. I talk to my spouse. He probably gets the most of it. And we talk about it and just letting those emotions out. And especially when you're talking with other homeschoolers, a lot of the times they'll understand what you're feeling or going through. And I think one of the most powerful things is hearing the words, I know what you're talking about, or I know what you're feeling, because they've been through that before. Knowing you're not alone in those feelings. I feel like sometimes jealousy and envy can be seen as, bad, negative emotions. I think they are natural emotions to have, and they are emotions that are meant to be dealt with, not shamed and guilted that you should just be happy in your own little, grass is greener on the side. It's hard sometimes to be content with what you have, and that's okay. That's a normal struggle to have. But shaming someone or guilting them for having those feelings isn't going to help anyone. So talking to others and being heard, I think, is sometimes we just need somebody else to hear how we're discontent with something. And sometimes those people will help us realize the good things we do have or try to redirect our energy. But sometimes it's nice to have someone to just listen to you. So that is really helpful and helps kind of release some of that negativity I have. And the last thing I do that I find really helpful is to do something creative. And this sounds weird, but when you're feeling jealous or envious or discontent with your life, I find doing something creative really, again, releases that negative energy. Something about creating something yourself is really positive and creates a lot of joy and happiness, and knowing that you can't do this or you can't have this, but you can do this thing, and that's amazing. So some of the things I personally like to do when I'm feeling jealous or envious of others is I'll play some music. So I'm learning to play piano, and I find that really helpful, actually. It kind of makes me realize I'm capable of a lot. It kind of, again, dealing with those emotions that you're not good enough or you can't do something, doing something you can do, or challenging yourself to do something new makes you realize that you're worthy of things. You're capable of doing a lot, even when you don't feel like it. Another thing, draw, paint, doing something artistic, I think, is really helpful. So last week I was definitely feeling that discontentment, and sometimes it could just be the mundane of everyday life that things get into a rut. And that's when I'll do something creative. And what I did last week is I did a Bob Ross painting tutorial. You can find them on YouTube, they're free. We did one last year with our Sunday school, and it was a lot of fun. And I was like, you know what? I want to paint. I want to do something creative. So I put on a 25-minute Bob Ross YouTube video, and I painted something. And here it is. And is it perfect? No. But are my trees happy? Yes, they are happy, and they have friends. And it just brought me a lot of joy to create something. And it hangs on above my fireplace now. And my daughter painted a picture too, and she hung it there. And it's just a reminder to us that to be happy that we're creative individuals and not to get stuck in this, we have to be perfect, or we have to have this, or we have to do this, but just looking inward. You will never find contentment in your life in external things and external resources. Contentment will only lie within yourself. So being able to find those things that make you feel content, make you feel whole as a person, I think are really important, especially when you're dealing with feelings of jealousy or envy, to realize that a lot of the times there's that underlying emotion that you need to deal with, that you're worthy, that you can do things, that you're capable. You might not have what that person has or that person has, but that doesn't make you any less. So I'd love to hear If you're willing to share the things that, make you jealous within the homeschooling community, or the things you wish you had, or if you just want to share the things that you do when you have those feelings, I'd love to, start that conversation going in the comments. For people, one, realize this is completely normal to be feeling, and two, to give us resources, things we could be doing to help deal with those feelings, to make, homeschooling a more inclusive and accepting environment. We're all different, and that's a great thing, and we should celebrate that and realize that we don't all have to be this one person, this ideal homeschooler. That doesn't exist. We're all unique families, and that's a wonderful thing, and that's one of the greatest things about homeschooling. So again, if you'd like to share any of that, leave them in the comments below. If you have any specific questions for me, leave them in the comments below. If not, thank you for watching.